We have with us Samir Dhanrajani. He's the business leader, Cognizant Analytics and Data Sciences at Cognizant Technology Solutions. He's a distinguished and recognized analytics and data sciences thought leader and visionary known for his deep knowledge, innovation, and topical approaches in analytics and data sciences space. His consistent penchant to spot analytics and data sciences trends and relentlessly create best-of-breed analytics and data science consulting, services, solution frameworks, methodologies have been remarkable. Please join us welcome Samir Dhanrajani this morning.
The world is changing faster than ever, creating new opportunities for those who stand ready to seize them. In a time when the biggest risk is playing it safe, we believe outshining the competition tomorrow requires challenging your business inside and out today. At Cognizant, our flexible, collaborative approach helps forward-looking companies not only run better, but run different. To give your customers every reason to keep looking for you. So if you're ready to see opportunities and see them through, we say, let's get to work. Because now, more than ever, the future belongs to those who challenge the present.
Morning, guys. Bhaskar told me one thing, in fact, about this, that Samir, if you want to do a presentation in the morning, make the crowd rev up. It's 10:15, we are over with the closures and the Bandh in the city, and it's a Friday at the end of the day. And I think my job and the remit, what Bhaskar tells me is, make it a bit provocative, because this is one industry which is getting hit by a velocity which is unforeseen. And the reason I'm saying, which is manifested in the slides, what I'll show is, last year, in fact, and just before I begin, just a kind of a retro mode. First, I think this is an excellent platform for analytics fraternity to kind of relate, contextualize, and be part of this, because I think it's not just about aggregating the speakers, it's about what's topical, what's new, and what can actually be relevant in terms of analytics, data science, and this industry actually thrives on nothing but change. And I think one of the reasons why it's important in terms of what we are doing today as part of this analytics, I would say forum, as part of the Cypher, is something which is more believable if we go 1 year back. And I took a theme last year as a part of the keynote which was Resurgence in analytics. The whole aspect was, look where exactly analytics as an industry is moving. What are the trending features? What's topical? What's coming? What's not? And in the last few slides of my pack last year, I had predicted and forecasted 3 important pivots in terms of what I say a data-driven economy. The 3 pivots were, 1, there is an intense democratization of analytics. It's getting, with such a furious pace, we are talking about analytics everywhere, and I don't need to dwell further on this. The second piece is, everywhere, every organization is embedding analytics into their operating models. Anshu just mentioned about the AIG and the whole changing facet of insurance company at large. And third piece, which is also equally important as part of a paradigm shift in analytics, is we're all riding this wave of data science. Now, if you take all these 3 win themes in a data-driven economy, we coined one word which we actually emphasized last year, algorithm economy. And that's the whole, I would say, premise on which my entire deck stands today. We are talking about today privacy, big data, we're talking about BIDW. Let me tell you guys, it's over. As an industry in analytics, we are also to be blamed. We invested too much bandwidth on big data. Velocity, veracity, I don't know how many V's were there, but the fact was data was always available, it was always pervasive. What was missing actually was making a meaning out of it. And I'm sure you guys can relate, either in some form, being practitioners, being kind of part of, let's say, even imparting analytics education training, or even as a service provider or servicing as part of your parent company in terms of a captive. One of the premise on which the whole tenet of analytics stand is we are data rich, information poor, insight starved. And that's where the customers and the clients say, can you help solve my problem? Now, this is where I think as an industry, all of us have a huge task to kind of ensure that we are marrying business, we are trying to get the insights, we are trying to get the intelligence, and we are part of those decision making, which will make analytics the Trojan horse for the corporates. And by no means it's an easy task. I'll tell you because we are an assimilation of different facets, dimension altogether. We've got data architect, we've got an SME, we've got a kind of a, let's say, person who looks at gleaning the data, massaging the data, and we also need a storyteller. Now that's where I think as an industry, analytics is going through a huge change, and we are getting very, very easily, I would say, perturbed if digital economy hits us with a huge, huge velocity. And I'll explain why, because I spent a few minutes on this, because it's important if you take some of the technology facets and the paradigm shifts, and we are all very, very privy to what's happening in terms of the technology. I mean, I'll just take some examples in terms of the terms which were not there a few years back. Just look at this kind of a slide and you'll get to know the difference. And this is just one sample size. I mean, 3 years back, 4 years back, maybe just a couple of years back, we never heard of these terms. The SMAC, the IoT, the data science, artificial intelligence, connected cars, drone technology, what Anshu also referred. I mean, how do you get to those situations if I take some of the snapshots of the industries and how they are moving? I'll just take a very quick glance without spending kind of a, let's say, much on this, and it's very, very kind of a, let's say, visually relevant. Anshu talked about this insurance change. I mean, it's absolutely, I would say, revolutionary in terms of how insurance is changing. You take retail, the whole piece and the facet and the dimension around omni-channel, the whole war between offline and online. I mean, you take consumer packaged goods, the supply chain issue. I mean, this is humongous today. We're talking about even the e-commerce companies and the large FMCG getting hit by the whole tsunami of supply chain challenges. We're talking about the healthcare, the consumerism, the piece around how do we make the whole relevance around the patient provider and the pay kind of a, let's say, system. We talk about life sciences, the real world evidence, the piece around clinical trials. Now, these industries are not just facing this as the trends. These industries are getting impacted by these trends. Now, when you look at these trends, and I'll just finish the industries and move to this, the media and entertainment, no surprise out here. Netflix is a major disruptor out here. Banking and financial services. Blockchain. The peer-to-peer lending kind of a thing. The no branch kind of a, let's say, network. Now, this is by no means something which is a fad kind of a thing. You take these things, and now, if I move, dovetail that with digital. I mean, the changing trends, the topical scenario, and the digital wave. And everyone is privy how today organizations are changing with the disruption, what's happening on the digital side. Now, that's another, I would say, a diabolical piece, that what's digital? Anyone out here? What's digital? To me, it's like a Casio watch, which we were using, I mean, maybe 10, 15 years back. That's digital. It used to show something over there. Now, there's another kind of a, let's say, stance that what's not. And again, if we get into those definitions, I don't think so the whole day will be enough for this. It's about a perspective. It's about something which is making a meaning. In the forefront of digital is the customer experience. It's all about accentuating the customer experience. Few years back, we were never known to be in the forefront of what we say an individual customer. Just take a step back kind of a thing. Before Industrial Revolution, we had this one-on-one, an artisan and a buyer. That's way back. Then came the whole Ford model, industrialization, the whole kind of a commoditization. Now, if you see a different trend today, what's Amazon doing? They are studying your data, your patterns, your behavior, and making contextualizing products just for you. Those campaigns, what you get over mails, are just for you. That's personalization. That's keeping the customer in the forefront, and that's the digital piece. The second thing is, let's not forget, the competition is breathing down our neck. Every industry is facing those challenges in terms of how do you gain that competitive edge. To top it all, we also have the piece around, and this is always what we say, management jargon. We need speed, we need velocity, we need innovation, we need agility. Look, that's how the whole, what I say, a surfeit of the challenges what industries are facing. Now, if you take that snapshot, now this is where the whole piece starts. And Anshu also referred to this, that data is the new oil and digital is the new currency. Now, if you take this as a dimension and put analytics, data science in terms of where it stands, what it means, how effectively this industry, this whole fraternity can gain, and what's the kind of a future-looking aspect where it can gain more prominence is something what I would like to illustrate in the few slides. Some of these things are important in a way because every business is today getting challenged. If you take the aspects of what I related, the disruption in the industry, dovetail that with the digital proliferation, and you've got a piece around where we are trying to reimagine the whole customer experience. We are also transforming the businesses in terms of their operating or their strategic models. And we are also saying, look, we need to innovate new products and solutions. Now, if you take this whole set of challenges, the bane of the industry is somewhere as an underpinning, it's all about data. It's all about something which is comprehensive, which can be more, comprehensive, which can easily make a kind of a difference in terms of how industries would like to relate. Now, if we go back and really take a look out here, this is where I would like to start as the whole premise of the whole discussion, that it's not a surprise that data is inherently dumb. It won't make a meaning. What's coming out as a meaning is the algorithm, which is self-intuitive, which has an ability to self-learn, which also realizes the kind of patterns, detect anomalies, and also looks at how exactly the decision-making can happen. And at the end of the day, if the algorithm is not making any insights, recommendation, or let's say intelligence, it's a futile exercise. And I think that's where as an industry, as a set of people who've been part of this whole ecosystem, it's very important that we need to realize that algorithms are meant to drive change. Algorithms are meant to get implemented. Algorithms are not meant to be a part of the repository. And that's where I would say that if you look at some of the disruptive, and this is again no rocket science, look at some of the industries out here, some of the organizations, Facebook, Uber, Netflix, Airbnb. Most of the associates today, when we talk about in our organization, say, hey, these are more of aggregators, asset-light companies with a huge funding and market cap. No. For us, if you look as an underpinning, the whole harbinger of growth for these organizations is nothing but their own self-proprietary algorithms. Recommendation engines, what they have really patented. The search pricing piece kind of a thing. The whole piece around the search and select kind of an option. Now, where were these industries a few years back? And everyone knows that they have toppled the Fortune top 10 kind of, let's say, companies which were there a few years back. Now, over there, that's the piece. If you look, the standing piece out here is the algorithm, which is their secret sauce. That's their competitive differentiator. Now, if we take that, what's driving this whole advancement of algorithms, so much of kind of a, let's say, rush around hiring data scientists, so much of brain power, cognitive kind of, let's say, ability coming in, We've got some of the very, I would say, crucial standing aspects in this slide. One, it's a fact that the whole piece around artificial mental power is getting augmented. What we say mathematical intellectual property. It's huge today. I'm sure some of us in this room are PhDs. We never had so much of a huge demand for PhD in analytics a few years back. It's all of because the ability to study data, the ability to make trends, preempt the situations, and also see that how it can make an impact to the customers. Now over there, if you see this whole piece, dovetail that and couple that with the data crunching ability getting fortified, the piece around what we say, the fracturing of the time-tested business model, and also in terms of what we say that at some level, organizations are saying, look, if I'm spending money on analytics, where is the ROI? That's the most obvious questions being asked for most of us when we try to grab business, and which is so relevant. So this is something which we say that because of the advancements in the mathematical kind of a space, and then you, on top of that, if you kind of relate, we've got artificial intelligence, we've got cognitive sciences, we've also got machine learning kind of aspects. Now, with that surfeit, how do you make a meaning of the whole piece? Now, this is what is more of a forward-looking piece in terms of few of the statements, what I'm trying to make out here. But at some level, the relevance and the contextualization of this over the next few years will start making meaning. And it's very, very topical today. One, that there'll be an emergence of algorithm marketplaces. I'm sure we won't be surprised at some level, just like stock trade, there'll be a trading exchange for algorithms. And that's already happening in a way where the organizations are trying to say, look, I'll create an algorithm, I'll try to kind of look at the business problem, and I'll sell that algorithm. Now this will be a huge shift. And the reason I'm trying to emphasize on this particular aspect, it's got a meaning in terms of what we are doing today and what we need to do as part of bringing that change up front. The second piece is that whenever we talk about algorithm, the pieces around a tried, tested, getting a rigor around the best practices come in. There has to be a trust around that piece, which means a best practice around this whole ecosystem will evolve. The third piece will be the decision optimization. I mean, as mentioned before, the piece is what I'm trying to allude. Everything gets fought and futile if the decisions are not being based on the algorithm. So there has to be a trend where we are trying to make a meaning out of the data, and we are trying to kind of monetize the algorithm in terms of the decision, what the algorithm makes. The piece around out here is also that large organizations will start competing using just algorithms, which will be, okay, I have this algorithm, and it's already there, what you see in terms of the disruptions in the industries. The Facebook, LinkedIn, every day today are talking about how they are revolutionizing the whole industries because of the change in their algorithms. So what happens because of that? We're talking about an emergence, a very, very fast emergence of algorithm economy. The disruptions today in the boardroom is about how CXOs can look in terms of redefining the technologies, in terms of redefining the whole leadership and executions because of what they believe their algorithm will say. Now, this is where I think as a part of the industry, we have a challenge. It's always a facet, okay, you go to the customers and the first thing they say, look, excellent pitch, you've got data sciences, you've got tons of high pedigree, high tenured, seasoned people. But let me also tell you that most of the work we are doing is based on time series logistic regression modeling. You've shown the customer the whole 9 yards of artificial intelligence, cognitive thinking. But the customer is at a different level in terms of anticipation. How do you make that shift? How do you ensure that what you're trying to show a customer, which is a bit esoteric to him today, changes to more about what is more contextualized and relevant? This is where I think the whole relevancy piece comes into the picture. It's all about when we say algorithms need to define intelligence, insights, and recommendations. The reason I have used this slide, and it's very, very, I would say, apt and suitable for the ones which are today making algorithms are executing as part of their projects. What you see on the left is all about the business challenges. Just a sample, just a representation. What you see on the side are just a suite of enablers. But what's relevant is, as a factorial of the output, what's coming out is the insights piece, maybe social intelligence, maybe the customer insights, and maybe some recommendations about what we are trying to do through the algorithm. And that's where I think the whole piece around algorithms will become what I say more, I would say, relevant if these things are coming out as part of the business challenge, as part of the overall takeaways, and with an underpinning of what we are saying as part of insights, intelligence, and recommendations. And the reason we touch upon this, and this is most of a, I would say, kind of a bane for the industry. We talk about esoteric stuff to the customers in terms of models, in terms of the techniques. Look, if customers knew about the techniques and the models, they would have not invited us to the table. And that's where I think a lot of this analytics industry, a lot of this data science revolution will get stalled, impacted, and may see a downward trend if the decision making in the boardrooms or within the CXOs is not happening with the kind of relevancy we provide in terms of the algorithm. I think this is a term being used very often today that if you look at the whole harnessing the intellectual property of the organization, and if you really want to ride on the disruptive trends and you really want to be very relevant in the industry today, you got to become a math house as a part of the industry or as a part of the organization, which is nothing that how exactly you are using algorithms as part of your daily discussions. It's akin to P&L. We all know that today people who are working in terms of striving for the revenue growth for their organization and also for their incentives, the whole talk is about top line, bottom line, SGA profitability. What can change if the algorithms will start speaking about, okay, this algorithm will start predicting trends, the anomaly detections, the pieces around recognizing the patterns, and will say, okay, this is where your customer belongs. This is the new set of the product you should be launching, and this is the set of changes you need to do as part of your operational process change. So everything encompasses, if you see from a strategic side. Gone are the days when we used to have 5 years plan. It's all about living almost on a very liquid kind of a, let's say, motion where we say every day, every week, every quarter is important. And many of these organizations are listed. A quarter kind of a, let's say, guidance can create a havoc, maybe on the upside, maybe on the downside. Now that's where if you take the organization leveraging the power of algorithms and using that whole intellectual property as part of becoming the math houses, the whole game changes where the conversations in the boardrooms are happening that, okay, we created, I'm just taking a hypothetical example, that an X organization created 5 algorithms, and this is the impact they've delivered in terms of their top line, in terms of more acquisition of the customers, in terms of looking at a risk mitigation approach, or even looking at that one particular algorithm which actually redefined their operational efficiencies as part of the supply chain. How easy those conversations can become because algorithm is all laced and backed up by the data. The piece is what's going as a factorial in terms of the strategic decision making to the board or to anyone as part of the CXO would be that this algorithm is backed up in terms of a proper insights, intelligence, and recommendations. I think while the buzzwords is important, I mean, we use a lot of buzzwords, and that's something which I've always heard in analytics fraternity as part of even hobnobbing with some of the analytics stalwarts that, look, Samir, at some level, buzzwords give us a foot into the door in terms of opening the conversations. But somewhere we fail to realize that when you're making conversation with even a potential customer or even a kind of a, let's say, pursuit in terms of having a conversation, the customer registers those pieces in their mind and always come back that what happened to that. And it's again going back to that, if we are claiming that we need to be a part of algorithm economy, there are few things which essentially, if it happens, will manifest the whole belief that this algorithm economy is true in the making. And the fact, if you take in terms of dimensions, are that if the continuation of democratization of analytics happen, with data as a service becoming a forefront piece in terms of how the monetization will happen, I think this industry will take a different wave and evolution altogether. The marketplaces in terms of algorithms will compel, force, and make an organization adopt the best practices in terms of making and conjuring up those algorithms which are the best of the breed. The second piece, which is related, and it's a very, very, I would say, nice aspect about this industry, that because of the analytics and the data science wave, it's also led to a lot of emergence of the niche startups. Now, the niche startup, if we look, let's say, 2 years down the line, may look at this model as the model which will kind of sustain in terms of they taking a competitive kind of an advantage because they have that supremacy of the algorithms, because that's catering to a specific business challenge and making a meaning out of it. And what they can do as part of making that algorithm very, very robust would be with some of the used test cases and saying, and going back to the customers and saying, look, I have a body of the work to demonstrate because this algorithm does this work for me. And the third piece which will happen, and this is, I would say, very, very, I would say, imminent today, that we are talking about millions of algorithms, each representing a software code, and also in terms of each representing or claiming to solve a business problem, and eventually saying, this is the X alpha it creates in terms of insights, recommendations, and decision making. And the last piece also, because at every time when we talk about analytics services, solutions, the products will also spawn out because the sophistication of the algorithms will make platform as a service very, very relevant. Now that's where if you encompass all these things and make the whole, I would say, conjuring up of the previous slides together, it's not far away where algorithms will start impacting the decision making in the boardrooms. We've already seen a very, very high emergence of chief analytics officer, chief data officer, who are part of the boardroom discussions. This trend wasn't there a few years back. So what you see out here as part of some of these dimensions, what I'm trying to allude, has already been testified in terms of the boardrooms, how decision making is changing because of the algorithms. Now trending out here is more important because I think if you look at the recent Gartner hype cycle, of the 24 trends they have predicted as part of the hype cycle, 10 trends are nothing but around data. And this is so substantial if you look in terms of power of what analytics and data science is doing today. It's phenomenal kind of a thing. Now that's where I think our relevance to be more topical, to be more contextualized, and to be more relevant in front of our customers and industry needs to be in the forefront. And I think some of those conversations yesterday as part of the overall Cypher discussions prevailed on that, that look, it's not about an industry. Every industry is today getting impacted by analytics and data science. It's so pervasive today. Pick up any industry, and maybe a disparate industry, a weather, or a kind of a, let's say, sports. It's all getting impacted. Now, I think over there, if you look at these trends, if you look at what algorithm economy, if you look at what algorithms can do, it's a huge, huge game changer. Now, this is where we say that we have a choice if we really want to be part of this whole revolution. And I think it's all manifested in terms of the discussions we are having from yesterday, today, and maybe tomorrow what will happen, that at some level, we're all looking for that Mr. Algorithm somewhere in the boardroom and saying that, look, this is how I impact you, this is how I impact your organization, and this is what I bring to the table. I think the holy grail of this industry will be achieved if Mr. Algorithm sits in the boardroom and start commanding the decisions in front of the CXOs and saying, look, this is what I bring to the table and to the discussion.